This program is about unsolved wonders. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials were not used to recreate events. Stock footage is the best we had, and what you're about to see is not a news broadcast. It was a cozy Christmas morning in Illinois when a farmhand awoke to find his employers dead, along with a smoldering pile of ash and a human foot. They say some people are born lucky. Just ask the woman who, as an infant, was miraculously discovered in the middle of the desert. Nearly 200 years ago, an anonymous poem was published in a New York newspaper. Today, it is called "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," and its author isn't the only mystery. The poem has a Mandela effect that will blow your mind. Confined to a retirement home, an elderly woman devoid of most mental function heard a song that jogged her memory. A little boy got a message from Jesus and a new little brother. Also, you'll hear about the radio Christmas play that the station owner swears never happened. Perhaps you can help solve one of these wonders. Join us for the first edition of the Unsolved Wonders of Christmas. For every wonder in this world, there are those that are particularly mysterious. Tonight, on Unsolved Wonders, we'll tell you how the Rooney's Christmas went up in flames.
It was Christmas Eve 1885 in Seneca, Illinois. Patrick and Matilda Rooney had invited John Larson in for merriment and drinks of whiskey. He was their farmhand, so after they had had a few too many, John retired to an upstairs room, shut the door, and turned in for the night.
Sometime in the wee hours of twilight, John awoke, coughing and retching, unable to breathe. He didn't get out of bed, though, and went back to sleep. The following morning, he was surprised to find soot on his pillow.
Padding downstairs, expecting a Christmas morning that was totally normal, John found a scene that was anything but. Patrick was dead, slumped on the floor in his bedroom. Matilda was nowhere to be found. Looking around the kitchen, John was dumbfounded.
That's when he saw it. The blackened hole on the kitchen floor, 2.5 feet by 3 feet wide. Inside that hole was a pile of ash and the charred remains of human feet. It was all that remained of Matilda Rooney.
Dr. Floyd Clendenin was the coroner of the county and was telephoned at once. By the time he arrived, a large crowd of spectators had formed. The walls of the house were coated in what he called a dirty, greasy, sooty substance, and the house had a sickening odor. It reeked.
It was determined that Matilda had been the victim of spontaneous human combustion, causing her entire body to catch fire and burn to ashes. She was reduced down from 160 pounds down to 12 in an instant. Dr. Clendenin documented the case himself in the 1889 version of the Therapeutic Gazette.
By some more recent accounts, the fire that consumed Matilda Rooney burned at 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. However, it appeared that she burned without a struggle and that the floor around her had not caught fire. The only evidence of a human having ever been cremated there was the cinderous remains of her skull and hip bone.
Not very pleasant.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
It gets better, trust us. So Patrick Rooney, it was found, had died of smoke inhalation. John Larson had initially been saved because he slept on the second floor behind a closed door. But did John really murder the Rooneys? It seems impossible for him to have started a blazing fire without damaging the rest of the Rooneys' home.
Dr. Clendenin had called the farmhand a perfectly harmless man who was almost an imbecile. Nice guy. He didn't seem to think John was a suspect. Then, what about the alcohol Matilda had consumed? Was that the culprit?
So Dr. Clendenin and legend imply that the Rooneys were habitual drinkers and that Matilda had had more than a quart of whiskey on Christmas Eve. Many people believe that excessive alcohol consumption caused Matilda to spontaneously combust. Modern scientists disagree.
Moral of this story,
Don't
Don't
trust
drink.
the modern scientists.
just don't drink. It's simple.
Nobody knows for sure what happened to Matilda Rooney. Did she spontaneously combust? If so, how? A local legend says she suffered divine retribution for daring to drink so much on Christmas Eve. As for us, we can only wonder. Next, the story of Sharon Elliott, the infamous Hatbox Baby, with no identity, who seemed to appear out of nowhere.
Ed and Julia Stewart were driving home on Christmas Eve, 1931, after taking their cousins to see the snow. At just about sundown, as it was getting dark, 7 miles west of Superior, their car broke down.
Wait a minute. Why did they drive to go see snow?
What do you mean?
You said they drove to go see snow?
Yeah, it's right there.
But-
You drive up north to go see snow.
Okay.
In Arizona, it's
I
desert,
guess
right?
so.
So you'd be like, dude, there's snow up there, let's drive.
I guess so. I'm from, Midwest. Snow everywhere.
Yeah, snow everywhere, right?
Sure. Okay. In the middle of the Arizona desert, as her husband fixed their gas line, Julia wandered about 150 feet away. To her surprise, she stumbled across a hat box with a surprise inside, a newborn baby.
With nobody around, they rushed the baby to the authorities. She was put up for adoption. Although 17 couples applied to adopt her, the day of the hearing had such bad weather that only 2 couples made it to the courthouse.
One couple already had a child, so the judge decided that the other couple would adopt the baby. The new mother's name? Faith.
For 55 years, Sharon Elliott never knew she was adopted. When Faith was elderly, she finally decided her daughter should know the truth. After that, Sharon collected clippings, documents, and mementos, including adoption records that she was able to unseal.
Faith had said that she had given her dear friend a sealed envelope with all of Sharon's adoption papers. And it turned out that this friend was actually Sharon's biological first cousin. Faith had written in a note that Sharon's birth mother was Edna Sherman Rowe, and that she had died in a plane crash in 1949.
Faith's letter had also claimed that Edna had seen her biological daughter Sharon in 1935. Investigators helped Sharon discover that the crash had happened in 1951, not 1949, as her mother had written. And they found that Edna would have been 15 or 16 when Sharon was born.
Edna's father had been a county sheriff in a small town in Oklahoma. Edna's mother had died. So in 1931, the consequences of having a baby out of wedlock at her age would have been devastating. The question is, how did Sharon end up in a hat box in the middle of the Arizona desert on Christmas Eve?
Some claim it was all a setup. Even Sharon seemed unsure what really happened. Ed and Julia Stewart maintained that they really did stumble upon the baby that night when their car broke down. They think all the questions over the years are just trying to ruin a wonderful miracle of a rescued baby.
As AZ Central pointed out, when they reported on the Hatbox Baby, if Edna Sherman Rowe did give birth to Sharon, how did she wind up in a hatbox in the middle of the Arizona desert on Christmas Eve? Was it a fateful coincidence that she was found, or an elaborately scripted plan? And with all the secrecy surrounding adoptions, how would Edna have seen Sharon in 1935? And how would Faith and the dear friend have come to know each other? As for us, we can only wonder. Coming up next, the mysterious plot twist nobody can quite believe around the world's most famous Christmas poem. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads, and Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled. How well would you say you know the "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" poem, a beloved tale told to generations of children? It's a Christmas tradition dear to the hearts of many, but it's shrouded in mystery.
Where did "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" come from? Originally titled A Visit from St. Nicholas, it was sent anonymously to the Sentinel newspaper in Troy, New York, and first published on December 23, 1823.
In 1884, Professor Clement Clark Moore claimed credit for the poem, which one of his friends had supposedly sent to the Sentinel. The story goes that Moore was embarrassed by the unscholarly poem, so he didn't take credit originally.
However, some historians say that the author was actually Henry Livingston Jr., not Moore. In the year 2000, Professor Donald Wayne Foster claimed the poem resembled Livingston's other writings, while it would be a strange anomaly in Moore's body of work. He also thought that Livingston's works and the Christmas poem contained the same words and phrasing.
The naysayers said Moore was a sour, self-torturing, unsentimental person, so the poem wouldn't fit his frustrated persona. But still, other historians disagreed and thought that it was Moore's work.
There was a clue towards solving the case, though. Interestingly, the names of Santa's last two reindeer in the poem were originally Dunder and Blixen. They only became Donder and Blitzen because of a printer's error.
Oh! Didn't know that, did ya? Writing years later, Moore did write out copies of the poem, but he committed the same mistake by writing Donder and Blitzen. If he had known the original names because he was the original author, would he have really changed them later?
The smoking gun, Dunder and Blixen, are Dutch for thunder and lightning. But Moore didn't speak Dutch. Livingston did.
Boom!
So did Livingston really write the poem? Nobody knows. The debate rages on after 2 centuries about who really wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
And that's not the end of the mystery.
Nope.
What are the true words to the poem? Can you finish this line? And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled for a long winter's nap.
So, if you had said settle down for a long winter's nap, you got it wrong.
I would argue you got it right.
I would argue you got it right too. Today, the poem says just settled our brains, which makes no sense, for a long winter's nap. And that's the official, written in the 1800s.
Today, as we speak, right this very minute, our brains is in all the written versions of the poem, and even in pop culture references like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap.
Which never said that when we were kids.
Dude, I was like, that was the first thing I went to. I was like, dude, I remember him saying settle down because he reads that part.
And I just realized we went through this whole episode. I just looked at Ben and he's wearing a ridiculous wig. I hope you guys are enjoying that as much as I just did.
How do lines change in such a well-known poem? Everyone remembers the poem, like we said, saying down and not our brains. So, could this be another Mandela effect where we observe changes in our timeline? How about the original author? Who really wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas"? Personally, I think that is a Mandela effect. So
That's definitely a Mandela effect.
actually, that was one of the ones
This
that
is one of
that
the craziest
shocked me.
ones.
Yeah, this is one of the ones that actually made me believe.
That's legitimate Mandela effect material right there. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this episode.
If you want to watch the rest and get access to our full catalog of content with hundreds of videos that will keep you entertained for hours and hours, subscribe to rise.tv.
Also, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss a single new drop.
Yeah, and we'll see you out
On the edge.